Welcome into the PHLY Phillies podcast. We are broadcasting live from the Xfinity Lounge here at the PHLY studios. A happy Wednesday to all of you across the Delaware Valley. As always, our PHLY Philly show is brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We have made it to the midweek, and the Phillies have split the first two games of the series against the Cincinnati Reds, and tonight they'll try for the series win. That would be their fourth series win in a row as they play the rubber match. Christopher Sanchez tonight versus Hunter Green, who I've talked a lot about on this podcast. I love Hunter Green. We'll talk more about that game in just a second. Early start time, 5:10 tonight for the Phils and the Reds. But I think we all have to have a conversation at some point soon about second half Ranger Suarez. And that's where we're going to start today's show. By the way, if you have not done so before today's show started, if you wouldn't mind, hit that like button down at the bottom of the screen. It takes about 2 seconds to do it. It's free and it really helps us out. And as well, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please, if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscription, and you can hit the bell notification as well to get notified for all PHLY shows, PHLY Phillies, PHLY Sixers, whatever it may be. You can get notified for your specific show that you never miss a pod. So I think we have to have the conversation about Ranger Suarez, and especially Ranger Suarez in the second half of the season, pretty much each and every year over the last three seasons. So last night, 5 1/3 innings pitched. It was a season-high 10 hits allowed. He gave up 6 earned runs, and he struck out just 3 hitters last night. And I think what I've been noticing, the trend that's kind of happened with Ranger over the last couple of starts, and it's the inverse of what we talked about in the first half. It's why we were so bullish on Ranger Suarez in the first half of the season. It's that the contact that he's given up is starting to really mount. The hard contact that he's been giving up over the last couple of weeks is really starting to mount in the wrong direction. Last night, he gave up 7 balls that would be considered hard hit contact. 95 miles an hour or more is considered a hard hit ball. He gave up 7 balls hit over 95 miles an hour, including 5 of those which were hit over 100 miles an hour. So the often soft contact, the off soft contact that he gives up, where he gets guys to pop up and roll over and jam shots and cue shots and balls that aren't hit very hard, those are still happening a little bit, but not nearly as frequently as what we've seen from Ranger Suarez over the course of the first half of the season. This is a guy who is in like the 99th percentile of average exit velocity. And even with the struggles that he's had, his average exit velocity for the season is 85.3 miles an hour, but it's going in the wrong direction each of the last couple of starts. And last night, those 7 balls that were hit over 95 miles an hour, the Reds ended up going 5 for 7 on. They had 3 singles, a double, and a home run last night on those 7 swings. I think it's pretty obvious to say that Ranger is starting to run out of gas. And I think now what we're noticing is a trend for Ranger Suarez over the last couple of seasons. Now, last season was a little bit different because he had the back issue that really cost him a lot of time in the second half of the season. But over the last 3 years now, Ranger Suarez's first half numbers versus his second half numbers are night and day. And we're going to get to them in a little bit. But I want to continue on with last night specifically before we start thinking about the grander scale of what Ranger Suarez has been in the second half over the last 3 seasons. Those balls that he gave up, the 7 hard hit balls at 95, the 5 hard hit balls at 100, in total, last night Ranger gave up 13 batted balls that were harder than his season average of 85.3. Almost every ball that was put into play last night for Ranger Suarez was hit at least medium hard and were harder than what he's typically given up. But it's not just the hard contact that he's had trouble with. His velocity has been down the last couple of starts. Listen, it's a guy who can thrive without velocity. We've seen it in the past. We've seen it as recently as just a few weeks ago that Ranger Suarez doesn't throw hard. He's a pitcher's pitcher. And we've talked about that plenty. The good about Ranger Suarez is that despite the fact that his velo is 90, 91, 92, he can get away with it because of the fact that his stuff has a lot of movement. It's late breaking movement. He can throw 4 or 5 different pitches on any given night and have success with those pitches And he really keeps hitters off balance. Their timing is not, they really can't get the foot down. They can't get the timing down because even though he's only throwing 92 or 91, 92, he'll drop that 75 curve. He'll drop that 82 change. And then when he does elevate up in the zone, 92 feels like it's 95, 96 because of the change of speed, the change of eye level, the consistency at which Ranger Suarez pitches when he's on makes him a near unhittable pitcher. And then on top of it, you add into the fact that there's a lot of late movement to his pitches. Not just his breaking balls, his slider, and his curveball, but his changeup has late dive. His sinker has late run. His fastball has good movement, when he spots it properly. But when that velocity is down and the pitches aren't as sharp as they've been in the past, that's where Ranger runs into trouble. Ricky Bo pointed it out last night in the postgame show, and it's true. It was a lot of flat yesterday. He felt like the curveball was kind of looping the plate. It felt like the sinker didn't have much movement to it. It felt like there wasn't a whole lot of life to Rangers' pitches yesterday. And so when you take a look at the breaking balls and the off-speed stuff, the curveball and the changeup both had 2 less inches of horizontal run than what his season average is. Now, the changeup doesn't bother me all that much because as long as he's getting the vertical break on the changeup, I can live with it not moving a ton of arm side because the changeup would move right to left. I don't have a ton of issue if he's not getting as much horizontal movement as long as the vertical movement's still good. But the curveball not getting as much horizontal movement is a problem because it's, instead of sweeping, it's kind of looping. And when it's looping, one of 2 things are happening. Either it looks like a ball out of his hand and hitters can spit on it, or it stays in the zone too long and hitters take advantage of it. And so last night you saw kind of what has been an issue for Ranger over his last couple of starts is just the pitches don't have nearly as much life. There's not as much late break. There's not as much movement, and it feels like it's a lot of flat. And by the way, I'm going to apologize today. I'm dealing with some stuff up. I don't know if it's congestion or whatever it might be. You might even be able to hear it in my voice. But I feel like there are a million pounds of pressure right between my eyeballs. And so I'm going to apologize in advance for that if I sound a little nasally or congested today. We'll play through. We play hurt here. But so I'm just going to apologize in advance. Other than the fact that the breaking balls and the off-speed stuff didn't have as much movement, you can also tell it was just a lot of flat from Ranger yesterday by the swings and misses. He didn't get he really didn't get any swings and misses yesterday. He got 6 whiffs on 49 swings. That comes out to be about 12% of the swings. Rangers' season whiff rate is 21.5%, which across Major League Baseball is fairly low. Across Major League Baseball, he has a 23rd percentile whiff rate. So even when Ranger's on, he doesn't generate a ton of swing and miss. And that's okay when he's generating the weak contact. He pitches to contact. You saw it through the first couple of innings last night. What do you have, 14 pitches through the first 2 innings, and it was 20 some odd pitches through the first 3 innings. He was cruising through the first time through the lineup. But then in the second time through, it's where he started to kind of get hit a little bit harder. But he doesn't generate a ton of swing and miss most of the time anyway. But even his middling 21.5% was down 9.5% from yesterday. So the swing and miss rates weren't there. He also only got 10 called strikes last night. Now, the called strike thing, you want to argue about how bad the umpire was last night? He got pinched. No question about it. There were multiple calls where he got squeezed last night. And I think not only did it impact the game because it impacted individual outcomes within the at-bats themselves, but I also think it impacted Ranger's mental last night, which is not something that we see a lot from Ranger Suarez. Ranger is Mr. Cool, Calm, and Collected, right? Mr. Ranger is the dude who takes the mound. He looks like he has fun pitching. He doesn't let a whole lot bother him. He gets into jams. He works out because he truly is a flatline pitcher. And I say that in the most positive way possible. Not a lot gets to Ranger Suarez. You saw it get to him last night. And he walked off the mound. And you can see it in the thumbnail that we used. You can see it in his demeanor last night. He walked off the mound, kind of looked at the umpire and looked at him, was like, dude, what are we doing here? And Rob Thompson talked about it after the game and said, I'm not sure if that impacted him, but if it did, we can't have that type of body language type of stuff. But for a guy like Ranger Suarez, you don't see him get frustrated very often. And so I think there was a little bit of the mental taxing for a guy last night who I think recognizes that he's struggling and recognizes that he's run into a little bit of a wall over the last couple of starts. And I also think there's the people aspect behind it is Ranger probably recognizes that he's costing himself a little bit of money over the last couple of starts. But the called strike numbers were low last night as well. He only got 10 called strikes. And if you take the called strikes and the swinging strikes to a number that is CSW, which is called strikes and swinging strikes percentage combined, it was still only 17%. So even for a guy that thrives in pitching to contact and pitching to weak contact, he didn't miss a lot of bats last night, and he wasn't getting a lot of called strikes either because he wasn't missing a lot of bats. And therefore, when he was in the zone, the Reds were getting a lot of contact. And so my question is, are we running into a trend where over the last 3 seasons or so, Rangers' second halves have been a little bit of a struggle? And again, yes, you can point to last year. The injury derailed him last year. It wasn't necessarily a running out of gas type of thing. The injury derailed his second half. But the numbers over the last 3 seasons have pointed to the fact that Ranger has struggled a little bit in the second half each of the last 3 seasons. So let's take a look really quickly at Ranger Suarez's first half numbers over the last 3 years. 2025 this year, so in a somewhat limited amount of starts because of the fact that he missed all of April with the injury. 7-3 with a 2.15 ERA, just above a 1 WHIP, a 1.06. Last year when he was an All-Star, 10-4, 2.76, a 1.04 WHIP. The year prior, 2023, he was 2-4 with a 3.7, a 1.3 WHIP. It was his worst first half, but over the last 2 seasons, he's 17-7 with a WHIP that is about 1.05. And if you take a look at the 3 combined years, his first half ERA over the last 3 seasons is 2.81. Compare that to the second half of the season, which has been much more of a struggle for him. Here's his second half numbers on the season, and they're entirely different. This year, over his first couple of starts, 1-3 with a 6.59 ERA. The WHIP is at 1.61. Last year, again, the injuries definitely played a factor, but a 2-4 record with a 5.65 ERA and a 1.69 WHIP. In 2023, he was 2-2 with a 4.5 ERA. It was actually his best second half with a 1.49 WHIP, and the ERA over the 3 seasons in the second half is 5.3. I mean, you're talking about an ERA over a 3-year sample size between the first half and the second half being basically doubled. 2.5 runs per start or per 9 more in the second half than what Ranger was giving up in the first half. And so I do think we are starting to run into a little bit of a trend here where Ranger may be having some second half issues. And so what does that lead to? Does that lead to maybe Ranger gets off of his feet for a little bit? We talked about with Zach Wheeler on Monday. Do we see an IL stint for him? Do they go to a 6-man rotation? I know Zach Wheeler doesn't love the 6-man rotation, but I think at this point, you may be running into a conversation that a 6-man rotation probably would be the best play. Not just for Wheeler, but also not just for Ranger, but also for Wheeler. And that's when Aaron Nola comes back, you slot him in, and you go to a 6-man with Ranger, Wheeler, Sanchez, Luzardo, Walker, and Nola, at least for a couple times through the rotation to allow these guys to get an extra day's rest. I know that Zach Wheeler has been pretty adamant about he wants to pitch on normal rest. His numbers are really good on normal rest. He feels more comfortable when he does it. But I also wonder if we're to a point now because of his numbers starting to trend a little bit in the wrong direction in the second half, Rangers' numbers trending in the wrong direction in the second half. I wonder if Rob Thompson and Caleb Cotham and the Phillies will deploy a 6-man rotation and just say, hey, listen, Zach, we know you don't like it. It's not for the rest of the season. It's not for the postseason. But let's go with it for the next 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 times through the rotation to get you a little bit extra rest, to give you a little bit of a reprieve, to get you guys to the postseason where we know we're going to structure our bullpen and our rotation in such a way. All right, on the other side, we're going to get into our big deal segment of the day because I want to focus on Ranger Suarez as an impending free agent as opposed to Ranger Suarez, the pitcher. But before we do that, I want to welcome our second member of today's show into the conversation. That's our producer and co-host, back from his vacation, our friend Andrew Frazier. First and foremost, Andrew, happy to have you back.
Happy to be back, Tyler.
You look rested, man. You look good. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Feeling great. Another year older. I'm ready to go.
You 29 again, right?
29 again, yep.
Well, happy belated birthday to you, and I'm glad you were able to enjoy some time off.
Appreciate it.
I know you guys talked about it on Anthony's show today a little bit, but I wanted to get your thoughts on what is now maybe becoming a little bit of a trend with Ranger Suarez and downward numbers in the last couple of second halves. I gave out a lot of different numbers and a lot of different stats, but just your thoughts on Rangers' trajectory kind of in the second half of the season and how it's played out over the last few seasons.
I mean, yeah, look, it's not good, right? His last couple of outings have really been kind of scary. It doesn't really seem like there's an end to it. Looking at his first and second half stats from his previous seasons, there's a trend there, obviously. His second half is usually kind of where he kind of starts to peter off a little bit. And I don't know. Going into this postseason, what is expected of him? What are you to do with him? Is he?
I think that's why we're going to spend probably the next 15 minutes on our big deal segment talking about it, because it's interesting. Because again, we'll do more, but like a little teaser for you. 6 weeks ago, I thought he was good as gone because he was going to get a big time deal.
Yeah,
and now I wonder if and what the contract is going to look like heading into the postseason.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird to almost say, we were jokingly saying it today, Taijuan Walker almost looks a little bit better than Ranger right
great.
now.
I mean, we talked about him on Monday when you weren't here, or actually yesterday in our video. You tip the cap to him. We've said that we've used that phrase a lot. At some point, maybe we just go, hey, Taijuan's having a really good season.
Yeah.
Especially considering the fact that our expectations were like the floor. And I'm not going to say he's been elite, but he's limiting hard contact. He's keeping the ball in the yard. He's not walking as many hitters. And his ERA now is, 3.4 on the season?
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing but good things to say about what Taijuan Walker's done this year.
Yeah, and so who knows what that bullpen's going to look like. That starting rotation come the postseason with the way Suarez is playing and way Walker's playing. Who knows?
All right, so we'll pause. On the other side, we'll get into that contract because I want to get into the nerdy side of the contract a little bit. We'll talk about numbers and qualifying offers and compensatory picks. We're going to do that on the other side in the big deal segment. But first, let's pause. It's the PHLY Phillies podcast brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. We're broadcasting from the Xfinity Lounge here in the PHLY studios. We will be right back after this. All right, let me tell you about our friends over at Cherry Hill Kia. If you're looking for a dealership with the most inventory and incredible low lease payments in the Philadelphia area, head on over to Cherry Hill Kia or KiaofCherryHill.com. They're the place to go to choose from over 450 new Kias, including the Telluride, Sportage, K5, Carnival, Seltos, Soul, so much more. Whatever kind of vehicle you're looking for, from a sedan to a midsize to an SUV, Kia has you covered, and they're going to get you in at a good price and a fair price. They are the hottest automotive brand in the country for a reason. 7 of their models received the 2025 Car and Driver Editor's Choice Award. If you combine that with the best warranty in the automotive industry, 10 years, 100,000 miles powertrain, and 5 years, 60,000-mile bumper-to-bumper, you can't go wrong with our friends over at Cherry Hill Kia. Stop in today, tell them the PHLY sent you, and receive a $100 restaurant.com gift card just for taking a test drive or for completing a trade-in appraisal. Listen, I know people buy Kias elsewhere. I'm just not entirely sure why. Drive home in a new Kia today, just minutes from all bridges, or shop online 24/7 at KiaofCherryHill.com. All right, let me tell you about our presenting sponsor, our friends over at Bet365. Find out why 90 million users worldwide have turned to Bet365. They are the pioneers of live in-game betting. You can live stream 780,000 events each and every year across 78 different sports. It's an incredible feature. that you're going to get in on the action at any given time. Lines change constantly, and you can get your favorable lines when the lines change, or jump in on a line when you're feeling good about a comeback late in a game. You can jump in on that line as well. But if you're worried about a comeback, don't worry about it with their MLB early payout model, where if your team is up by 5 runs at any point in the game, you get an instant payout on straight bets and parlay selections marked as winners. So download the Bet365 app, use the promo code PHLY365, deposit just $10, and place a bet for $5, and you'll get $150 back in bonus bets, whether your bets win or lose. You can use the code PHLY365 and you'll get that money back. You can use it on spreads, totals, player props, futures, so much more. Find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast. Again, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We are broadcasting live from the Xfinity Lounge here at the PHLY studios, and it is time to get into our big deal segment of the day, which of course is brought to you by Cherry Hill Kia. Again, KiaofCherryHill.com to shop 24/7 on all of their greatest and latest makes and models, or just minutes from any of the bridges into their Cherry Hill complex to shop in person. And again, tell them that PHLY sent you, and you get a $100 restaurant.com gift card just for taking a test drive or completing a trade-in appraisal. All right, so let's talk about Ranger Suarez on the contractual side of things, the nerdier side of things, that spectrum, and ask the question, what does Ranger Suarez's next contract look like? Because as I said to Andrew right before the break, I think 6 weeks ago, like late June, as we were trending into the All-Star break, where we were having the conversation of, man, if Ranger would have pitched in April, he would have been an all-star. If Ranger would have pitched in April, he'd be in the conversation for Cy Young candidacy. 6 weeks ago or so, we would have had a conversation about Ranger Suarez getting paid, like big time paid. And now all of a sudden, we're having a conversation about, is that number coming down? And how much is that number coming down over the next couple of weeks? And so I was reading a lot of tweets on social media about, and even in a group chat that I'm in, where a lot of people were saying, I think Ranger probably is going to walk, and he's going to sign somewhere else because of his struggles over the last couple of weeks. And I almost feel inversely about that. And I'm not trying to take like a contrarian take here. This is just almost how I feel from a monetary standpoint, knowing what the Phillies' like budgetary availability is going to be next year, and who they're going to kind of target in the offseason, knowing that Kyle Schwarber needs to get paid, trying to figure out what JT Realmuto is going to get, trying to figure out what the arbitration numbers are going to look like for guys like Alec Boehm and Jesus Luzardo, and all of those things taken into account. Andrew, I almost feel that the number coming down is more beneficial to the Phillies. Now, I will say this. I have held steadfast for pretty much the entirety of the season that I think that Ranger Suarez is going to walk this offseason. I still think he's going to get a larger deal than what the Phillies are willing to pay. And even with his struggles, I do still think there is a team, whether it be a team like the Baltimore Orioles who need pitching, a team like maybe the Boston Red Sox who need pitching. I still think that there is a team out there that is going to be willing to spend money to bring in a Ranger Suarez on a deal that is more than what the Phillies are willing to spend. But I also think that if that number is to come down from X to 75% of X, I think that's more beneficial to the Phillies because they may find themselves more willing to be in that. Like, if I'm just going to throw out a number that's like a 17 or 18 a year as opposed to a 25 a year.
Yeah. It really all depends. So obviously we have a lot of season left. We have a whole playoff run to go through. This conversation can change in the next 2 months.
And I think it's going to.
Especially if he starts to ball out, if he plays well in the playoffs, that money can either rise or fall even more so than what it is currently in its state. It all depends if we're looking at it currently right now in this situation. If tomorrow was free agency and whatnot, It would all really depend on what the Phillies are looking to give him as a role, because they have so many prospects coming up, starting pitchers, other guys that are going to be here. Are they going to look at him as a starter, or are they going to look at him more of like a bullpen? Like, what is his role going to become?
Well, I think he and Scott Boras are going to push that he's going to continue to be a starting pitcher.
Exactly.
Because obviously they get paid substantially more.
Of course. So, but if the Phillies don't value him there and say, hey, look, Ranger, we know how you are, your tale of 2 seasons, could somewhere else be like, hey, we'll take you as a starter for the money that you want? It really all comes down to that.
So I think there are 3 certainties surrounding Ranger Suarez. The first certainty is the first 2.5, 3 months of the year, Ranger Suarez is going to pitch really, really well. I also think the certainty of Ranger Suarez being a very utilizable weapon in the postseason, as you brought up, as a starter or as a bullpen guy, because A, he's left-handed, B, he's confident in getting outs in high-leverage spots, and C, we've seen him do it before, is also true. The inverse is, I think the third truth is that he has faltered down the stretch in the regular season each of the last 3 years by either injury or fatigue. That has started to set in. So it's an interesting question. So the question that I pose with Ranger Suarez next year is, would the Phillies be willing to offer Ranger the qualifying offer? Now, this is where we really nerd out, because what the qualifying offer is, for maybe those that maybe don't know what the QO is you take the mean salary on an average annual basis of the top 125 players. So the number changes each and every year, and it tends to go up more times than not. The average, the mean salary of the top 125 players heading into the 2026 offseason, without obviously understanding that certain guys are going to get paid, but you look at it from this year's number, is a little over $21 million. So effectively what the qualifying offer is a 1-year $21.6, I think it's $21.6 million deal. And what that does is it puts a contract in front of the player. It allows you to continue to negotiate with the team that you played for last year on a long-term deal, but you have an offer in place. And it also allows some financial flex, or some contractual flexibility for that team. So my question is, if I were to ask you point blank, is Ranger Suarez right this moment, if you were to offer him a multi-year deal, is he worth almost $22 million a season?
I don't think so.
I would tend to agree, but I'm going to give you 3 names that signed last year for multiple season offers.
Sure.
Do you believe that Ranger Suarez is greater than, equal to, or less than these 3 players? Sean Manaea.
Equal.
I tend to agree. I like Manaea more than most. I think when they're at their peaks, I would take Ranger.
Yeah.
When they're at their 50%, I think they're probably about equal.
So put that in context. If we're talking about first half Ranger, seeing how he's been every year so far, I take him over
Ranger. For
everybody.
Sure.
I take him over everybody. But having to add in that second half is where things are going to start to fall.
So the reason I bring up these guys is Sean Manaea got 3 for 75 last season. Greater than, equal to, or less than Luis Severino. I think he's better than
I think
Severino.
He's better, yeah. I think
Severino got 3 for 67.
He's also on a back end of a career.
Yes, much older. I shouldn't say sizably older, but older than Ranger.
Yeah.
Last one, Yusei Kikuchi.
I would say probably maybe equal.
So Kikuchi this year has pitched pretty well. 6-7, but that's more because the Angels aren't very good.
Yeah.
3.37 ERA. Whip's kind of high. He's about 1.4, but he's at about a strikeout per inning pitched. He was an all-star this year for them and has now been a 2-time all-star. 146 strikeouts and 139 innings. I think when he's on, he's really, really good.
Yeah.
He disrupts timing. I I would say at their peaks, I would take Ranger, but on their mean, I would take Kikuchi. With that being said, you say Kikuchi got 3 for just under 64, which actually, I don't know why. Again, I go back to I don't know why he signed with the Angels.
Yeah.
But I think he could have gotten a little bit more than what
money.
he got.
Yeah.
But anyway, I give you those 3 numbers because they're somewhere between $21 and $25 million a season.
Yeah.
Which I think heading into the year is where I would have placed Ranger Suarez to get.
Yeah.
The qualifying offer being $21 million or a little bit over $21 million, I still think Ranger probably gets somewhere in that range of 20 to 25 a year like these 3 guys got. So if I offer him the qualifying offer, one of 3 outcomes can happen. First, he accepts it. I don't think he's going to. I think Boris will do everything he can to say, do not accept the qualifying offer. You can get a long-term deal. But if he accepts the qualifying offer, he's back on a 1-year, 21-point-something million deal, right? Option 2, he declines the qualifying offer, signs a long-term deal with the Phillies. I don't think, if I were to say likely scenario, I would put that at 2. I would put he accepts it at 3, meaning least likely. Most likely, I believe, he declines and signs elsewhere. Now, if that happens, he declines and signs elsewhere, the Phillies, in turn, if they offer him the QO, will get a compensatory pick back in exchange.
Okay.
Now, the compensatory picks with the qualifying offer vary vastly, and this is where we're really getting into the weeds. They vary vastly between teams that are above and below the tax threshold. For the Phillies, who are above the tax threshold, the pick would be in the 4th round of next year's draft. Because they're over the tax threshold, they would get that pick within the 4th round. Now, if the Phillies weren't over the tax threshold, if they were a revenue-sharing recipient, like those bottom feeder spending teams are, it would be the team's 3rd highest selection and the 4th round pick. But because the Phillies are willing to spend money, they have an ownership group who spends, the Phillies would get the team's 4th round or 4th highest selection. With that being said, it's going to be a 4th round pick more than likely. It's not earth shattering, but extending the QO would give them something instead of Ranger walking for nothing.
Yeah.
I have maintained, I think the likeliest scenario all season long is that Ranger walks in free agency and you just deal with the consequences.
I think that's most likely the outcome as well.
But knowing that those 3 guys who I think are in the ballpark of Ranger Suarez, some on the higher end, some on the lower end, if they're in that ballpark of Ranger Suarez, is it a fair assumption to say that Ranger might get 3 for 75-ish next offseason?
I mean, if you're comparing it to those other 3 guys and seeing what they have gotten, I don't think so. I think he kind of is in that ballpark of that amount of money.
Right.
I don't think he gets any more than 75.
So I actually could see a scenario where he gets a little bit more. But assuming he doesn't, like you said, in that range, that's about 20 to 25 a year. So if he's going to decline the QO anyway, which I think he would if he expects to get about $75 million a year, I don't see the harm in offering it. I think the worst case scenario for the Phillies is they extend the qualifying offer and he accepts it. And I say that it's not an awful thing because $21 million-ish for Ranger is not the end of the world for one season. It would put you in a little bit of a financial bind unless you were able to trade Taijuan Walker, which would offset some of that money. But right this season, Walker and Sanchez combined are making a little over $26 million. If you're able to trade Taijuan, even if you eat some of the money, and you add it to the 21, you're at about 25, 26 again this year. I think the worst case scenario would be that Ranger accepts the qualifying offer, and then you're kicking the can down the road for one season, and you're unfortunately going to have to pay, maybe not unfortunately, but you're paying the guy $21 million for 1 year. I think the likeliest scenario would be you offer the qualifying, he signs somewhere else, and you end up getting a comp pick for it. I think if I were the Phillies, I would extend the qualifying offer.
Okay.
Because I don't think he's going to accept it.
Yeah.
And
I don't think he will either.
If
I
he
think
had a different agent, maybe we would be in a different conversation. But like being a Boris client, now we've seen him over the last couple of years overinflate the market, and Blake Snell had to sign a cheap deal and then got massively paid the following year. Jordan Montgomery had to sign a kind of crappy deal. He stunk and has been injured. Feel bad for him because he lost out on a ton of money. I don't think Ranger's going to be in that ballpark, but I do think Boris will push for a long-term deal if possible. And so if I were the Phillies, I would extend the qualifying offer. And that is our big deal segment of the day, brought to you by our friends over at Cherry Hill Kia. You can visit them really just minutes from any of the bridges here in Philly, or shop online at kiaofcherryhill.com for pretty much any time of day. Well, not pretty much any time of day, 24/7, because you want to get in on your next Kia as soon as possible. All right, that's our big deal segment. Again, brought to you by our friends over at Cherry Hill Kia. We're going to pause for just a moment. On the other side, the postseason schedule has been announced. And Andrew, I got to be honest with you. This is about as good of a postseason schedule as the Phillies could hope for in terms of setting up their pitching rotation. We'll talk a little bit more about it on the other side. We have our Ace Hardware Temp Check segment to get to. We want to talk about one Andrew Painter. And we'll wrap up today talking about the rubber match between the Phillies and the Reds this evening, early evening at Great American Ballpark. It's the PHLY Phillies podcast. It's brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We are broadcasting live from the Xfinity Lounge here at the PHLY studios. We will be right back. All right, listen, life can be unpredictable at times, but one thing that shouldn't be, it's the price of your internet. You're going to get a reliable price at a reliable connection with our friends over at Xfinity. And when they say all in, they mean all in. You're going to get the Wi-Fi equipment and unlimited data included. They are introducing a 5-year price guarantee from Xfinity. One internet price, 5 years guaranteed. Listen, I don't know what prices are going to look like. We've seen some prices of things shoot up over the last couple of years, and they might get higher in the next 5. It's very unpredictable right now. But with this 5-year guarantee, you're not going to have to worry about the price of your internet changing. Listen, change is inevitable. Songs get rewritten, classics remastered, bands and artists come and go, but no matter what changes in 5 years, the price of your internet is going to stay the same. You can learn more at Xfinity.com. Restrictions do apply. New residential customers only. Taxes and fees extra and subject to change. Again, head on over to Xfinity.com for all of the details. All right, once again, let me tell you about our friends over at Cherry Hill Kia. Because if you're looking to get in on the dealership with the best inventory and super low lease payments in the Philadelphia area, it's KiaofCherryHill.com. Telluride, Sportages, K5s, Carnival, Celtos, Souls, you name it. Again, whether you're looking for a sedan, I drive a sedan right now. My next new car is probably going to be at least a midsize and maybe an SUV as my family continues to grow. I have to start thinking about getting that second, maybe even the third row that I might need for the future. I have to head on over to my friends over at Cherry Hill Kia because they offer incredible pricing on low lease payments in the Philadelphia area and an amazing warranty. 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain, and 5-year, 60,000-mile bumper-to-bumper. So stop in today. Tell them PHLY sent you. You'll get a $100 restaurant.com gift card just for taking a test drive or completing a trade-in appraisal. Listen, I know people buy Kias elsewhere. I just don't know why. Shop online 24/7 at KiaofCherryHill.com or minutes from all bridges at their Cherry Hill location. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast. Tyler Zulli here, Andrew Frazier with us as well. Thank you so much for being a part of today's show. We are broadcasting live from the Xfinity Lounge here at our PHLY studios. I want to bring up really quickly before we get into our next segment, G Shields 7820 brought up the point about trading Ranger for a player like Steven Kwan. Excuse me. Sorry, my voice is starting to falter a little bit. I apologize. I was maintaining for most of the season and into the trade deadline that I think Ranger is valuable to this team in this postseason setting. I believe because of his positional flexibility, meaning he could start if you needed him to. He could pitch out of the bullpen if you needed him to. He's pitched in high leverage postseason scenarios before. I've maintained for a while his value to this team is still high. I also want to point out the fact, if you felt like you wanted to trade Ranger Suarez, if the Phillies felt like they wanted to trade Ranger Suarez, they would have had to have found a team that was also competing. And the reason behind that is because Ranger's on the final year of his deal. He becomes an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. Teams that are looking to acquire starting pitching, more times than not, if they're not in a legitimate postseason press, they're looking for controllable starting pitching. They're looking for guys with multiple years of contract or team control in order to have them and justify having them for the foreseeable future. Now, a team like the Phillies, if they were looking to get starting pitching, if their starting pitching depth wasn't a strength, that's the type of team who maybe would acquire a Ranger Suarez type of pitcher, a Mike Soroka type of pitcher. A couple years ago when they acquired Michael Lorenzen because they needed starting pitching depth, knowing that it's only a half a year rental, that's the type of team that would acquire a starting pitcher of that caliber. I think looking at the Guardians, and yes, they're still in the playoff push. I think they're only, a game and a half back of the New York Yankees right now for the final wild card spot. I think that's a team that would be hesitant to not only acquire a rental, but also give up one of their premier bats in the lineup to do so. I just think that's a team that would have been very hesitant to acquire a player like Ranger Suarez. If reports were true that in order to give up Steven Kwan, they wanted Andrew Painter, I understand why the Phillies wouldn't do it. Team control is still very much in play. I still believe, and we're going to talk about Andrew Painter in a little bit, I still believe that Andrew Painter is a massive part of this team's future. I don't think the Phillies were willing to part from Andrew Painter, but I think a team like the Guardians, who maybe is a playoff team, maybe aren't a playoff team, I don't think they're looking to acquire a player on an expiring deal like Ranger Suarez. So you would have had to have found a team that's in the playoff hunt and needs starting pitching depth and has a player that they're willing to part from and has a player that the Phillies are willing to acquire. It's a lot of overlapping Venn diagram circles with very little actual overlap. And so if you think about the teams that would have wanted a guy like Ranger Suarez, they're postseason teams. They are, I'm trying to think of the teams like the Cubs probably would have liked to have had Ranger Suarez. But are the Cubs going to give up one of their premier offensive players to acquire Ranger? Probably not. Boston, same thing, right? I don't think they would have been willing to part with one of their young, talented outfielders for a half a season of Ranger, when a lot of these teams could just sit here and go, we'll just wait for the offseason. If we really like Ranger, we'll sign him in the offseason. If we really like Ranger, we'll give him a larger deal than other teams are willing to offer, and we're just going to wait it out, and we'll figure that out in the mix. So I don't think there was a lot of teams that meshed well with the Phillies in terms of a Ranger Suarez deal that would have returned the player that the Phillies were looking for. All right, really quickly before we get... Actually, you know what? Why don't we do our Ace Hardware temp check segment first? And that way we can get that done before we get out of here. And then we will get into the postseason discussion on the other side. You know what? Excuse me. I lied. We do our Ace Hardware temp check segment quite a bit. However, I apologize to our friends over at Shady Rays, because our segment today is our Future is Bright segment, which of course is brought to you by our friends over at Shady Rays. 35% off a pair of polarized sunglasses when you head on over to Shady Rays and use the promo code PHLY. I bought a pair myself. They are incredibly durable. The optics are great. And of course, I need my polarized lenses, so they have that for me as well. So I know a lot of people right now are down on Andrew Painter. And I know that the numbers don't look great. He has struggled this year numerically at Lehigh Valley. He's 3-5 over his 16 starts this year. He now has a 5.42 ERA. Now, the strikeout numbers are still pretty good. It's about a strikeout per inning pitched, 77 strikeouts and 76 in the third innings pitched. But what is a little bit more concerning, of course, is the command, right? 82 hits over 76 innings, and on top of that, 31 walks in that same time frame. To put it into perspective, last year in 2020, or excuse me, in 2020, total, I should say, he has 32 walks in 87 innings split between his Clearwater numbers and his Lehigh Valley numbers. So since going up to Lehigh Valley, his walk numbers have gone up. His whip now is almost 1.5. That's the bad. And I think it's fair to question the command. I tend to like to believe that when it comes to recovering from Tommy John surgery, the command is one of the last things to come back. The ability to spot, you're still working through some stuff. I've never had it. I can't speak on it, but I would imagine it probably feels like you got a new arm or a new elbow, and you're still working through some things. I know that over the last couple of weeks, Andrew Painter's numbers have not been very good. And I also believe that at this point, I don't think we see Andrew Painter on the Major League roster this year. I think they're probably going to let him play out this season, mentally reset, physically reset, retool, and come back in 2026. And I think you're probably going to see Andrew Painter pretty quickly in 2026, especially if the velo's up, the command looks good, the stuff looks good. I still think the future is extremely bright for Andrew Painter. And I know, Andrew, you and I have talked about Andrew Painter in the past. You brought up some concerns this year with the numbers. And I am still kind of cool on Andrew Painter because as long as the stuff returns, as long as the velo, has begun to return, if the command returns in 2026, I think you're looking at a guy who's going to be on the Major League roster pretty quickly in 2026. This year, the numbers are not good. There's no other way to put it, right? The ERA stinks. The whip stinks. But I have maintained that I'm not as worried about the numbers as I am about the stuff. I think this year, Andrew Painter's probably looking for this year to be over. If I were him, I'd be like, oh man, get me through the end of this season. Things are starting to labor a little bit. If he can come back with a fresh mindset and a fresh mentality, and the arm looks good, and the command is better, and he's giving up less hard hit contact, he's giving up less hits, I think you are going to see Andrew Painter pretty quickly in 2026. And that's why I still hold out you asked me, would you have considered moving him at the deadline? My answer to that question still unabashedly no. How are you feeling about Painter at this point?
I still feel like we could have done something with him, made a big trade with him, but he's here to stay, and you have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, he went through the Tommy John. It's going to take him a while to recover. I want to see him up in the bigs. Very much unlikely that's going to happen this year. We can kind of write that one off. So I think finishing out the year that he's in right now, having that off time, and then coming back stronger and hopefully more, conditioned and ready to go for the next season. I kind of agree with you. I think that we will see him sooner rather than later once that new season starts.
Do you think, because I have my thoughts on when he makes his debut, because the Phillies are not notoriously this organization, but most organizations do this, where they do the Super 2 thing, where there's a set date every year that if the player comes up after that date, it's an extra year of team control and arbitration. Do you think there's a chance, just in your opinion, that Painter starts the year with the big club, or do you think it's more likely that they do that Super 2, makes a couple of starts in AAA, and then he gets called up after that date?
That's hard to say, because I think if he comes out in spring training and looks really good, and his velocity's there, his command is there, I think that they will bring him up right away.
Okay,
because we're not going to know exactly.
They're not a cheap organization. If he can compete and help them, I think there's a case for it.
Sure. And then also we don't know exactly what the outcome is going to be of the starting pitchers, because you have Luzardo, you have Ranger, you have all these guys. You don't know who's going to be there, who's not going to be there. So he may need to be in a spot where he has to come up sooner rather than later.
Sure. Yeah, and you're right. I think is Ranger back next year plays a part. Do the Phillies look to maybe move Taijuan Walker? Because I think the way that he's pitching, and with 1 year left on his deal,
sell high.
I think you may be able to facilitate a trade in the offseason if you're looking to make one. But if that's the case, then you would go with Wheeler, Sanchez, Luzardo, Nola, then who's 5? Are you looking to make it Painter right away? Are you bringing in a veteran arm who, is on a cheaper deal that you feel comfortable with? Do you stick with Taijuan Walker as your 5 for the first couple of weeks, knowing that he feels comfortable being that swing gate guy? I do think it's if he blows you away in spring training, you probably have to make the move.
Yeah.
If he's okay to good, I think you'll see him after that date.
And that could be a late trade then, where if he does blow you away in spring training, where you trade Taijuan Walker then, because there is no need for Taijuan.
And I think teams will, if an injury occurs in spring training, if a team maybe believed that they could sign a veteran in the offseason and they didn't make it happen. Like, I look at teams that should be good. And when I think about teams that should be good that are missing pitching, the Baltimore Orioles come to mind.
Yeah.
Vastly underperformed this year. Now, I will say their offense has been a problem this year, right? Gunnar Henderson's been really good, but outside of that, Rutschman's underperformed, Mayo's underperformed. Who else? They've had a couple of other guys who have been a little bit underperforming. They move Ryan O'Hearn, they move Ramon Laureano, who both were playing well. So I think the expectation I would believe for the Orioles is this young core should bounce back next year, and they need to add pitching. I wonder if a guy like Walker for 1 year, veteran, who could come in and maybe stabilize the back end of your rotation, would be intriguing for a team like Baltimore.
Definitely. And then that would be something where you would definitely want to sell him high. So you would, Exactly.
Yeah, interesting point. And like I said, I still believe the future is super bright for Andrew Painter. And I know, again, the numbers and people are up in arms about why didn't you trade him and is he a bust and blah, blah, blah. I do want to reiterate. Now, I guess this is maybe hypocritical because I've talked about guys like Skeens and Burns and Mizorowski over the last couple of years coming up and contributing. Andrew Painter is still only 21 years old and shouldn't say only because I've seen guys bounce back from the injury, but is still just a few years removed from significant arm surgery. So if we're at this point next year and Painter hasn't been called up and he's pitching poorly again in AAA, then we have a different conversation. But right this second, I still believe the future is enormously bright for Andrew Painter. All right, let's pause for just a moment. On the other side, we're going to get into the postseason run. We'll talk about tonight's game. And I want to ask you, Andrew, how do you feel about Philadelphia sports on a misery index from 0 to 100?
Okay.
100 being you're absolutely brutally miserable, life is pain, and 0 is everything is good.
Well, definitely not 100.
Because ESPN just put out a misery index calculator, and we're going to play it on the other side. It's the PHLY Phillies podcast brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. We're broadcasting live from the Xfinity studios at the PHLY, Xfinity Lounge, at the PHLY studios. We will be right back after this. All right, let me tell you about my hometown casino of choice. Of course, it's Parks Casino in Bensalem, just minutes away from the Street Road exit of I-95 and the Turnpike. But if whether you want to get out on the road and have a night out on the town or not, you can play all of the great games that Parks has to offer right from your fingertips with the BetParks online casino app. You can check out brand new casino games like Huff and More Puff and Fireblaze Sky Queen, which is a BetParks exclusive. It is the only app that I will ever choose to use because they offer my favorite casino games right in the palm of my hand. I play a lot of blackjack on the app, but you can play roulette, craps, poker, baccarat, and hot online slots like Cats Eruption and 88 Fortunes, and your favorite streaming show or your slots based on your favorite streaming shows like The Walking Dead, Squid Games, Breaking Bad, and so much more. And if you're a new user to the BetParks Casino app, you'll get $1,000 or up to $1,000 back in bonus bets whether you're down or if you're down, in the first 24 hours. So go to betparks.com and download the app right now and enjoy all of the action and excitement from the casino right at your fingertips. Must be 21 and in PA, New Jersey, Maryland, or Michigan. If you for BetParks, you love to play, you play to win, you bet BetParks. If you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800 gambler. All right, let me tell you about our friends over at Shady Rays. As I said, 35% off a pair of polarized sunglasses. More on that in just a moment. You know that moment, the one that you realize that you left your favorite pair of shades at the beach or on the roof of your car or at a gas station and you're 3 states away on a road trip. I've been there before. I've lost a bunch of pairs of sunglasses in the ocean as well. You can check out Shady Rays, and you're not going to have to worry about that lost pair because every single pair of sunglasses are backed by a pair of or by a lost or broken replacement guarantee. They're good looking, they're polarized, they're durable, and they're not crazy expensive. And it's why I wear my sunglasses confidently everywhere I go, whether it be outdoors, in the car, to the amusement park, to the beach, whatever it may be. My Shady Rays are always with me, and I know that if something does happen to them, Shady Rays has my back, and they're going to have your back as well. We've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head on over to ShadyRays.com. Use the code PHLY for 35% off a pair of polarized sunglasses, and try for yourself the shades that are rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right, you know what, Andrew? I think we'll save the postseason schedule conversation for another day. Before we get to the misery index, I want you to fill in the blank.
Okay.
All right, 3 words, fill in the blank. This is not a trick question. Fill in the blank. Now she's back in the atmosphere with blank, blank, blank in the air.
Oh my gosh, I know this song. I'm Skip.
With Drops of Jupiter in
Drops
the air.
of Jupiter, yeah.
The reason I don't bring that up for no reason.
You threw that at me, man.
I don't bring that up for no reason.
Why
The
is
reason
that?
the Phillies play at 5:10 tonight is because post-game, much like there was a concert Monday night at Great American Ballpark where Snoop Dogg was.
Yeah.
Post-game at Great American Ballpark is the band Train. Woo!
That's the name of that band?
Yeah, Train is performing.
Train? Oh my
That's
gosh.
why the Phillies are playing at 5:10 tomorrow, because I guess they're playing almost like a full concert.
Yeah, what is that? 5:10.
So
What a
here's
horrible
the thing.
start
The
time.
Phillies have done that before where, who was it recently? Nelly, I think, performed after a game. And
Yeah.
even Snoop Dogg was Monday night, and that was 6:10.
Yeah.
But 5:10 tells me they're playing like a full set. And so here's my question. I'm a big proponent of there's only 2 types of music. Music you like and music you don't. Because
Okay.
everybody's taste is different.
Sure, yes.
Right? You may love a band or an artist that I hate. And I'm sure, Andrew, some of the music I like, you're like, dude, what are you doing? Go see a priest.
Oh, I'm sure the same thing. Yeah.
But I like Train was big 30 years ago, like 25 years ago.
I was like 12 when that song came out, I feel like.
How is Train dictating the start time of a baseball game?
I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. And it blows my mind that Train is still that big of a band that they're even doing a game.
So I want to ask you a question. Honestly, and I don't mean this to disrespect Train. I like the song Drops of Jupiter. I think it's catchy. It comes
Sure.
on, I sing along.
Sure.
If I were to ask you, outside of Drops of Jupiter,
No.
name me
None.
any other Train song.
None. I don't know any. If there are, I may know them, but I don't know the name.
The only other one that comes to mind, and I Googled it, and I'm looking at some of the names. The only other one that comes to mind, actually there's 2. I would say the big one is Hey Soul Sister. That got played like a billion
What?
times in the mid-2000s. That's
Yeah.
Train.
Okay.
And then do you remember Calling All Angels
No.
in the early 2000s? That's the other one. But dude, I got to tell you.
That's not the one. They don't do the song, She's So High Above Me, She's So Lovely.
No, that is that Ty Bachman? Let's see.
You know what? That might be. That's just rung a bell.
I think that's Ty Bachman.
Yeah.
But
Good knowledge
dude,
by
like,
you to know that.
Of all artists, again, I think it's just music you like and music you don't, and I happen to not be a Train fan. But how the hell is Train pushing an entire baseball game back an hour?
I have no idea. Yeah.
Hey, Soul Sister, I guess it's time to head into overtime.
Yeah.
All right, if you're watching on our streaming platforms, our Roku, our Samsung streaming platforms, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Head on over to allphly.com to watch the rest of the show. It is officially time for overtime. Train.
Yeah.
Train.
I know. That's like shocking.
Like when Train, I'm trying to think of other bands that are comparable to Train.
Well, this is something, and maybe this is just me because I don't listen to this genre of music anymore. But so Champions League that happened a couple months ago, their halftime show, we'll call it halftime show. Halftime show was Linkin Park.
So
is Linkin Park still that big?
Huge.
Really?
Emily Armstrong took over as the lead singer of Linkin Park, and they are on a global tour right now.
Really?
Oh my! Their new album is incredible. Now, I will say this: you're never going to replace Chester. Chester Bennington is one of one.
Yeah.
Emily Armstrong does a killer job. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're on a big tour right now.
Wow. Okay. I thought they were kind of over with.
Yeah. So player one of the Mad Cats calls Train Cole's Core.
Yeah.
Like music you would hear at Cole's.
That is, yeah.
So I Googled bands that sound like Train. Here's what I got. Matchbox 20.
Oh, man, yeah.
5 for Fighting, which I believe had one good song.
Yeah.
Was it 100 Years?
I don't even know.
The Script.
Oh, man.
One Republic.
Republic.
Lifehouse.
Oh, man.
Lifehouse had Hanging by a Moment.
Yeah, like
See,
Imagine
this one's
Dragons.
Disrespectful. Don't you dare disrespect Hootie and the Blowfish.
Yeah, come on.
Hootie and the
Good
Blowfish
ska,
is way
man.
better than these bands.
Yeah, you can't make. Yeah, come on.
And then this one, I guess I get it. It's like alt rock, but like I would place the Goo Goo Dolls way above Train and all of these bands.
I would give. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Wow. Some of these. Cole's Core is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Literally songs you would hear in Cole's.
It is.
That, like, if they came on the radio, like, your mom would be like, oh, this is a good song. Because she heard it in Cole's.
Yep.
And and I will tell you this. My mom has really good music taste. My mom influenced my music taste a lot. She's a big, 70s classic rock fan.
She's into the heavy metal?
No. But she was my gateway into, like, heavier stuff. So she got me into like classic rock, which eventually got me into like classic metal, like Maiden and Priest and stuff like that, which then got me into the metal. So my uncle is a classic metal guy. Maiden, Priest, Metallica. So he took me to the next step, and then I went way off track.
That was my dad for me. He was the classic rock.
Ozzy.
My mom was the disco.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I got into like all the house music and all that
Big
stuff.
ABBA fan.
Oh yeah, dude. I'll still listen to that.
All right, really quickly, we're in overtime. We got way off the grid. Before we go, ESPN dropped a "How happy are you as a fan?" Find out where your score is on our Sports Misery Index. And now, of course, the website is broken. I was doing it earlier today.
There must be so many people who are trying to do it.
Yeah, it might be. So you basically what it was you put in the teams that you root for, and they did an index based on the most recent year of success and then like the last decade or so of success. So Philadelphia was in a pretty good spot, namely because the Eagles have literally just won the Super Bowl.
Yes.
And the Phillies, even though they've come up short, have been a perennial contender for the last four years.
Yeah.
Right? So the Phillies and the Eagles have helped out that number. Now, the Sixers have been playoff contenders, but vastly underperformed.
Yeah.
And the Flyers have been one of the worst teams in hockey for probably the last 5 years now.
Yeah.
And I added the Union to it. And the Union, so they all put a little bit of a caveat, right? The Eagles were like, the Eagles was like, there's still streamers coming down Broad Street.
Yeah.
The Phillies was like, they haven't won yet, but they've been pretty good.
Yeah.
The Sixers was like, are you doom and gloom about getting out of the second round? And it was like, yes.
Doom and gloom about getting to the playoffs now.
Yes, I am. And then the Union was like, do you still dream about 2022?
Oh,
and it's like, bleep you, man.
Sickening.
Yes, I do still dream about 2022. But the number was pretty good compared to what it maybe could have been. It was in like the 30s. And so again, the score was 0 was like you're in bliss, and 100 was like you're in hell. And it was like in the 30s. I think it was a pretty good number.
Yeah, that's a great number to be in. Yeah.
Could be Detroit.
Oh.
Who prior to last year, the Lions were pretty historically bad. The Pistons were historically bad.
Yeah.
Detroit last year had a really good year. The Lions went to the NFC divisional round, probably should have gone to the championship game, choked out in the divisional round. The Tigers made the postseason, had a crazy second half of the year, and they're playing some good ball this year.
Yeah.
The Pistons made the playoffs for the first time in what, like a decade?
Decades, yeah.
And then the Red Wings are still kind of middling, but they're still in the midst of a rebuild. Last year was a good year for Detroit, comparably to, God, what they've had over the last few years. But I will say, maybe if we head into next year, because what it said was taking into account last year and past. So the Union, top of the table right now, maybe they bring that number down a little bit. Maybe the Phillies bring that number down a little bit.
They could have some streamers.
We got some good to look forward to.
Yeah.
And of course, the Eagles are still defending Super Bowl champs. That's going to do it for our show today. Big thank you to everybody who was in the chat. Conversation ranged from real topics about Ranger Suarez to why is Train still a band, and everywhere in between. Big thank you to all of you. John Peace, Player One in the Mad Catch, G Shields, Provolone John, K-Red, Elephant in the Room, Peeling Onions. Big thanks to everybody. Rose Blanche was here earlier today. So big thanks to everybody in the chat. Really appreciate you all. We will be back on Friday for our 1 o'clock rendition of the PHLY Phillies podcast. In the meantime, switch on over to the PHLY Eagles show, which is on right now, and the PHLY Sixers show, which will happen at 3 o'clock today. And of course, a big thank you for producing and co-hosting today. That is Andrew Frazier. Big thanks to you, Andrew, for all your help as always. I am Tyler Zulli. We will check back in with you at 1 o'clock on Friday for the next installment of the PHLY Phillies podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365, right here in the Xfinity Lounge at our PHLY studios. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Phillies, Reds, remember, 5-10 start today, and then a 4-game series against the Nationals beginning tomorrow. So we'll talk to you on Friday at 1 o'clock right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.